I want answers. The message you've been sending us all week. All TxTag customers, all fed up with customer service.
The hoops you have to jump through to get someone to work with you.
Complaints resurface with the state's tollway billing system after the Texas Department of Transportation first promised to fix it 2 years ago.
If you're going to build a toll road, it better work the way people expect it to.
From 2015 to today, many of you tell us the payment process is actually a lot worse and has you facing major fees.
Yes, nearly 30% of all TxTag accounts have had a bill sent to collections this year alone.
And now KXAN investigator Brittany Glass has discovered new vendors and an aggressive collections agency, part of this web of frustration for millions of TxTag customers tonight.
That's exactly right, Robert. Shannon, just look at this. TxTag, Chase Source, former contractor Xerox, Conduent, a Houston law firm, all just this year. No wonder so many of you have reached out to us because you can't get a straight answer about your accounts, like having bills sent to the wrong address and facing fees for not paying, or getting charged for a vehicle you don't even own. Or like this next woman says, being sent to collections while waiting for customer service to help.
For years, Mila Louvier says she enjoyed the convenience of the TxTag system. She could drive through tolls with no hassle. And TxTag simply drew money automatically from her bank. Then this spring, she started noticing some unexpected charges. So she reached out to TxTag customer service.
Calls to them haven't been helpful.
Louvier says she phoned repeatedly, waiting more than a month just to get a call back from someone who could resolve her problem.
Those calls just didn't come until it was way too late, until they had sent 95% of our account to collections.
In just a short 2-month span, her initial $400 bill had shot up by more than $5,700 in administration fees. And soon, a collections company was demanding she pay up.
I do feel like this is a goal of their customer service, to send people into collections and get as much money off of these fees as they can.
Thank you for calling TxTag customer service.
Louvier is not alone. This year, more than 2.2 million TxTag accounts have been sent to collections, racking up nearly $1 billion in fees for drivers. Linda Sexton heads up toll operations at TxDOT and says those fees can add up fast.
Isn't it a problem if nearly 30% of all TxTag accounts are in collections?
Well, it's not necessarily indicative of a problem. It's very clearly drawn out how a transaction escalates through the process and the applicable fees that will be applied if those notices go unanswered.
It's heartbreaking to listen to those kind of calls every day. And it's all day long.
This former TxTag customer service representative asked us to conceal her identity if she agreed to share what happened when she took her concerns about calls to management.
They do not care if you have a problem with it. That's your job. You do what they say or you can leave. They don't care.
And so you left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd rather leave than work for a company like that. I'm not going to work for them.
And when she left, she took her employee manual. It says workers must keep their call times to just 5.5 minutes, including hold time.
What happens if the issue is too complex to be able to be resolved in under 5.5 minutes?
There's going to be those instances, and we will certainly take the time that is necessary to ensure that we answer all of the questions and that we answer it to the customer satisfaction.
Still, customer service reps are given a quota. At least 80 calls per day to collect as many payments as possible, but to never inform customers if their accounts are in collections, which might mean they owe a lot more.
They're paying and they're thinking that they're paying their bill, which to me is even more deceitful.
Why are people sitting on hold?
When the contractor hired to collect those bills didn't meet customer service expectations in 2015, it was penalized $177,000 by the state. The message? Shorter wait times and fewer frustrations.
Thank you for calling the TxTag Customer Service Center. Your request could not be processed.
The outcome? New problems and uncertainty TxDOT will ever fix the system.
It's going to take another agency to go through and fix it. They're never going to do it on their own. It needs to be changed now.
That customer service rep is not alone. We spoke with a handful of others who all had similar stories, all saying something has to change. Now, we've learned that change could come with the Texas Attorney General's office. Over the years, it's received plenty of complaints about the TxTag system, but if it receives enough, its consumer division could possibly investigate. And that's exactly what one state lawmaker says he hopes will happen.
There are still technology problems, and it seems baffling to people that you can't get it right.
There are two major toll roads running through the heart of Representative Tony Dale's Central Texas district. He says they've been a problem, and they still are.
We've got a large number of constituents that drive on the roads on a daily basis, and we hear complaints weekly without question.
Including complaints about TxTag customer service.
You would hope that someone makes a call for a complaint, it's handled in a timely manner, and no matter who gets the call, they should be able to address it.
Until the problems are fixed, Representative Dale vows he won't drive on toll roads in Texas and proposes a complete system overhaul.
I think Texas needs a wholly different way to look at this. Myself and other members of the legislature are going to be asking the Speaker to have the Transportation Committee look at this specific problem.
And it looks like the Speaker of the House is already taking notice. We learned in just the few days since we first started telling viewers about this investigation this week, Speaker Joe Straus added toll transparency and stakeholder responsiveness to a list of issues he wants lawmakers to study before the next session. He wants recommendations on how to improve oversight of the system. Representative Dale says one idea he'll pitch: bring all of these toll operations under one entity. In the past year, all of these entities have been part of the process at some point. He says that change could mean not only a smoother process for customers, but also more transparency. But we spoke with TxTag officials, and they say their process is already a good one, that their workers go through extensive training for 2 weeks to make the process as smooth as possible.
They go through an additional week of shadowing customer service representatives who are taking live calls. So they go through almost a month-long training session before they're allowed to even speak directly to customers.
TxTag says it's also made changes in its customer service and call centers since problems first surfaced a few years ago. There are also extended call center hours. Still, many of you have told us you've called TxTag and still don't have answers about your bill.
So we are taking your concerns straight to the top of TxDOT.
Check out the homepage at KXAN.com. Click on I Want Answers. Tell us about your experience with customer service and upload your bill. TxDOT tells us it will review and help get to the bottom of the bills we deliver to the agency, so let us help right now at KXAN.com.
All week you have been sending us your toll bill after having no luck getting answers or help about why they're so high so suddenly. One man found it so frustrating, he tells KXAN investigator Brittany Glass it took a state lawmaker stepping in to get his account cleared up.
Got married in Jamaica.
Flipping through photos, Matt Kovac says he's able to capture the beauty of the woman he loved so much, the wife who died unexpectedly after routine surgery in January.
When I see us on the beach like that, it's just feels like, we hit the top, where it's smooth sailings from there.
Kovac says dealing with Jesse's death and planning her funeral were overwhelming enough.
That's when, the toll bills and everything just kind of froze.
But what came in the mail 4 months later made matters worse. A collections letter demanding he pay nearly $30,000 for his late wife's TxTag pay-by-mail account.
How is that even fair when you say, here's how much you have in tolls, and then there's admin fees for $27,500?
Thank you for calling TxTag customer service.
Kovac contacted TxTag customer service, who said they couldn't help. Then he tried the collections agency.
We'll reduce the bill by 70%, and you only owe $9,100. And at that point I was like, so you're telling me I still have to pay a bunch of imaginary fees when I'm willing to pay my exact toll amount that I owe for those tolls that were done?
Not satisfied, Kovac refused to pay the fees because he says he didn't even know his wife's account had gone to collections. he was never notified.
When it came to like the bills and everything, you trust your wife. I had assumed she was handling the bills.
Fed up, he went to his state rep, who was the only one he says would help him resolve the problem.
The hoops you have to jump through to get someone to work with you. I wasn't about to roll over and say, oh yeah, I'm scared I'm gonna just sit here and pay, amounts that are still just absurd.
Kovacs says a review of the collections process and what the agency can charge is necessary at the Capitol.
Why don't you turn around and look at your billing process and how your billing process is affecting thousands and thousands of people in Central Texas that are very upset with how this is running.
We've had an overwhelming response when we said, we want to take your bills straight to the top of the Texas Department of Transportation for help.
So far, more than 180 of you have sent in your bill through our special I Want Answers form on KXAN.com, and that number is still climbing.
Tonight, KXAN investigator Brittany Glass has also discovered one of the biggest reasons it's all rising to this level of frustration for you.
Robert, Shannon, here's the thing. It appears Texas has no current law saying how much a collections agency can charge overall for your TxTag bill. Lawmakers did cap certain fees, though, in this last legislative session. Under Senate Bill 312, the new monthly TxTag fee is set at $4 per invoice for tolls 30 days past due, with an annual cap of $48. Representative Ina Menares, who helped push this consumer protection amendment, says it holds toll authorities responsible.
At what point do you stop taking advantage of people just because you're looking at money and wanting to bring in that revenue? It's just wrong. We need to make sure that we treat the public fairly.
Despite the new law, the latest meeting of the Texas Transportation Commission, which sets toll fees statewide, showed not everyone agrees with the new caps.
Driving on a toll road is a choice, and for those who choose to get on there should have to pay, and we should be entitled to recovering our cost and the fees that are associated.
Still, commissioners approved the motion and the caps take effect early next year. It's important to remember, though, it appears those caps only apply to late fees on accounts that have not yet gone to collections.
We received hundreds of bills from viewers in recent weeks that we took straight to the top of TxDOT for answers. Today, the agency's executive director tells us they've reviewed those bills, and the reason customers are surprised by sudden collections letters, fees they didn't even know were adding up, is because he says the customers didn't have their correct address listed, meaning the bills went to the wrong address.
Because we did not have that information available to us.
Why was the collections agency able to identify their new address, but TxDOT was not?
Yeah, they have different methods available to them.
TxDOT Executive Director James Bass said that was the case with more than a quarter of the bills we handed over. The system, he says, worked the way it was meant to nearly every time, and for the few when it didn't, TxDOT is trying to help.
And we're going to work with customers to address and resolve any issues they may have.
But the issue isn't always listing the wrong address. Some of the biggest bills we've seen, the address was correct on the toll bill and the collections letter, like this Pflugerville woman's. Still, she says customer service was unable to explain why a $730 toll charge somehow racked up more than $11,000 in late fees. And there are plenty of complaints that have nothing to do with an address. Like this customer who tells us he has a credit card on file, but after receiving his bill, he looked and it hasn't been charged since June. Or this woman who says the toll reader inexplicably could not read her TxTag on a few occasions.
We've assumed.
It was clear during the first Senate Transportation Committee hearing since our investigation aired, when it comes to Texans' money, lawmakers want more transparency from Bass and his agency.
I went through 3 tolls, but by the time I paid my bill, it was, $45 instead of $4.
Senator Lois Kolkhorst told us she wasn't surprised to hear more than 2 million TxTag accounts have been sent to collections this year.
And I am putting pressure on you because we can't have a lot of mistakes.
Many of them, she's learned, are her own Central Texas constituents.
Toll roads could almost become like a new utility bill. I'm worried about the working citizen that has a new utility bill every month that is taking away from their disposable income, which funds and fuels our economy and their way of life.
The executive director did tell us since TxDOT believes one of the big problems was bills going to the wrong addresses, the agency will soon provide an option for customers to provide their email address. So hopefully that will prevent future frustrations and make the process a whole lot easier.
The customer had not informed us of an address change.
TxDOT still blaming dozens of customers for many of those massive TxTag late fees we've been investigating for months. We took your bills straight to the top of TxDOT for answers, and they told us the bulk of the problems stem from customers failing to update their address. But as KXAN investigator Brittany Glass uncovered, TxTag has a way to make sure addresses are accurate. It's just not always doing it, and it might be costing you.
Because I don't drive the toll roads, I automatically knew this is not for me.
Andrew Wheeler is largely confined to a wheelchair.
I haven't owned a car in probably a good 30 years.
He says it doesn't make sense he's been receiving TxTag bills over the past year for multiple drivers he doesn't know at his own home address where he's lived for nearly 2 decades.
These poor guys, you know, they have, I'm sure, not a clue that there's some outstanding bill that they haven't received, you know. One
of those bills was meant for this man, Nathan Fryer.
I don't even understand how that works. Like, how is he tied to me at all? That's a little alarming.
Especially since Fryer doesn't even own the vehicle listed on the bill anymore. He sold it early last year, then the new owner sold it again, all verified through the state's Department of Motor Vehicles. But the bill still went to the wrong address.
They're still racking up bills in my name in North Austin, which I am obviously not driving on that highway.
TxDOT tells us drivers are supposed to update their addresses if their TxTag bills are being sent somewhere they don't live. Why was the collections agency able to identify their new address, but TxDOT was not?
The initial invoices went to the wrong address because we did not have that information available to us. The customer had not informed us of an address change.
But TxDOT should be able to verify addresses on its own, which should help cut down on confusion and massive collection fees. You see, under Texas law and through this interagency contract, TxDOT is supposed to use DMV's record system to track down drivers who pay by mail on the toll roads, or get it to the right place through other reliable means. In Fryer's case, the DMV says it has the correct address for the current owner, who we also tracked down, just to make sure. There are huge discrepancies with the address system, the way that TxTag works with DMV. Things aren't adding up.
That's not what we're seeing at all.
At the latest Texas Transportation Commission meeting, an agency spokesperson blocked our questions from commissioners. Bills are getting sent to people that they shouldn't be getting sent to, and that's why people aren't getting their bills.
We are using the addresses that we have with DMV, so they should be getting their bills.
Fryer never did. He says he never received any TxTag bills at the home where he's lived the last 7 years during the time in question.
I'm sure I'm not the only person. Texas is a big state. There's got to be lots of folks out there who have $10,000 bills that have no idea they have them. And that's just alarming. They got to find a new system.
TxDOT has told us all along this wouldn't be an issue if customers paid their bills. That doesn't satisfy some state lawmakers who are now going directly to the commission that oversees TxDOT, demanding answers and planning solutions ahead of the next legislative session. More on that tomorrow on KXAN News after the Olympics. In Austin, Brittany Glass, back to you.
Thank you, Brittany. After we first started investigating last fall, the House Speaker added toll transparency to a list of issues for the Transportation Committee to take up ahead of the next legislative session. Well, this past week, we were at that committee's first hearing where it was clear lawmakers are prioritizing this as they work to craft upcoming legislation and make improvements to the TxTag system.
There's been people that are in dire straits. I mean, just ridiculous amounts of money, and they're trying to deal with the problem. It's not like they're running. They've called TxDOT, they've called the toll authorities, and have just been ignored or passed on.
Happy to report we have some good news tonight, as we've learned a new fee structure is set to take effect on March 1st, and it should help with future toll charges.
And KXAN investigator Brittany Glass tells us about some other big changes in the works and hopefully relief in sight for at least some of the millions of TxTag customers who've racked up massive fines in the past year.
We've learned by the end of this month, the collections agency sending drivers all those late fees will no longer be contracted with TxTag. Since right around the time we started investigating, there have been no additional accounts sent to collections. And if you still owe a late fee and actually know about it, they're trying to work with customers by giving out discounts. Still, some state lawmakers are not satisfied and want to make sure TxDOT truly fixes these problems for drivers' financial future. Taxing Texans to drive. That's how Senator Bob Hall sees tolls.
The patchwork of systems we have, first of all, confuses people.
So fixing the TxTag system is his priority ahead of the 2019 legislative session.
The cost of collection, the huge agencies that the various tolling authorities have that are just consumers of money.
Following our initial investigation last fall, the North Texas lawmaker was one of a handful of state leaders who questioned the agency about TxTag operations. He wrote to TxDOT heads he's disturbed by certain toll tactics, like trying to fool the public by simply removing the word toll from the title, using the term managed lane instead. Senator Don Huffines gave his concerns, too, about the public finance decisions being made and their ramifications for Texas taxpayers. Telling TxDOT managed lanes only cater to people with money. Others can't afford the same opportunity to avoid traffic. And State Representative Mike Schofield's office had to intervene with TxTag directly when a constituent said TxTag can't get their equipment to work, and his account was sent to collections.
Just want to make a couple of comments on the issue, a couple of the issues, and then where I think I see us going based on what I've heard here today.
Senator Hall was at the most recent Transportation Commission meeting with hopes of addressing decision makers face to face. That's when it became clear, though, they don't see eye to eye.
I'm reminded in discussions that I have that when I turn on the water, that's a choice of how long I turn it on. The light bulbs we use in here, the type of electricity or how long we turn the lights on, that is a choice.
The bottom line for Commissioner Jeff Austin?
It is a choice. You know, it's a choice. It's not a tax. It's a choice.
The worker, the laborer's choice is, do I get home a little early or do I get home with milk for the baby?
Despite the difference in opinion, Senator Hall says he's committed to fixing the problem.
What we have to do is minimize the imperfections that are in it. We need to take a look at it and see what we can do to improve it.
Part of that means looking at TxDOT toll roads planned for the future. Remember last fall when TxDOT released its outlook, it included more than a dozen new managed toll roads. Within a day, though, the governor and lieutenant governor fired back, reminding the commission they don't want more tolls. The commission has since revamped the plan and axed a majority of those toll roads. In Austin, Brittany Glass, back to you.
Brittany, thank you. This whole investigation started when you weren't getting help from customer service and turned to us for help.
We delivered hundreds of your bills to TxDOT for answers, and we've now discovered some state leaders have received this flyer, what appears to be a mock-up of tips to maintain your account. It tells you what to do if you buy a new vehicle or if you sell a vehicle.
Also, if you get a toll bill for a vehicle you no longer own or you move. We reached out to TxDOT to find out when and how customers will start receiving that flyer, but it would certainly help as those issues were some of the main complaints we heard from you. KXAN State of Texas host Josh Hinkle has also been speaking with lawmakers on our political program about the changes that are in the works.
Yes, and one of those lawmakers, Representative Tony Dale of Cedar Park, he has 2 toll roads in his district, and he says he was encouraged by these developments. The most significant, before collections and customer service billing contracts are with 2 different entities, which was likely behind a lot of the confusion and miscommunication. Starting next month, it will all be combined under one entity, Conduit. Dale says it's a promising first step, but there's still a long way to go.
And as a result of what you did and follow-up questions that we did also, we went back to TxDOT and said, yeah, that's a good question. It needs to be answered. And they went to Conduit, the company that manages the TxTag system, and now they've forced them, essentially, and Conduit has agreed to do what's called skip tracing, so that if someone has moved, and this is a problem with people moving and not updating their information, but now Conduit does this skip tracing, so that should result in more people getting their bill in a more timely manner. And I really think it's partly as a result of you guys asking that question.
But consistently, we've heard from the executive director and the Texas Transportation Commission, Jeff Austin in particular, that it's the customer to blame. With that kind of culture at the top, is that right? Should those people be in those positions?
Well, I think they can do better. I've had meetings with all of them except for Mr. Austin, and express my concerns over how we can improve the system. And I get pretty good feedback from them, but I'm still in a wait and see mode. I think we're still in for another year or maybe more before we can transition to a system that's really going to be responsive to toll road users.
And will you look at the leadership at that point to see if the fix is working? Should there be a change in leadership?
They're not going to be able to get the support if they can't fix what they currently have.
Certainly, lawmakers will be watching closely ahead of the next session in 2019, and there will be committee hearings in the meantime where I'm sure they'll be asking TxDOT a lot about the progress.
Hi folks, State Representative Tony Dale here. I've heard from many of you about the problems with the toll roads and particularly about billing practices. Good news is that KXAN is doing an investigative story right now and they want to hear from you. Maybe you can help bring some positive change to the situation.
Seeing something like that from a lawmaker means this isn't lip service. Something can be done and it's worth it. Things can change and we're a part of that.
Hundreds of complaints to our investigative team and a nearly year-long KXAN investigation. The Texas Department of Transportation is now waiving more than $1 billion of debt. 2.2 million accounts were sent to collections last year alone. KXAN investigator Brittany Glass has the news for us today. Brittany, what have you learned?
Well, Robert, Sydney, we told you last month about the implementation of Senate Bill 312, which limits the fees TxTag can charge for delinquent toll users. That followed our months-long investigation into sky-high bills. Now TxDOT has decided the law marks a new day in the TxTag system.
The decision has been made. We are only moving forward with the current one in compliance with Senate Bill 312. So all of the earlier late fees are no longer being pursued.
TxDOT will waive all late fees accrued before March 1st. That's a total of $1.3 billion that won't be collected from drivers in all. But Representative Joe Pickett told us TxDOT did not implement the legislation for Texans with exorbitant bills soon enough.
They had time. It was a year ago since we've been in session. They knew that that was coming. They knew about the problems with the collection agencies. I think they could have just done it all at one time.
So check your statements. The waived late fees were charged between the year 2007 and March 1st this year. Anything after that is fair game for those late fees. Of course, up to that cap we mentioned of $48 per year. Now, no refunds for customers who paid collections and late fees before March 1st, though. TxDOT says they very much appreciate drivers who paid their tolls and their late fees.